Hey y'all, good afternoon to everybody in California. Good evening to everybody on the East Coast. My name is Adamu, and I'm gonna be your host and MC tonight. I use the pronouns he and him, and I'm an artist and community organizer from the Bay Area. I'm also a person who was released in October from San Quentin through 1170D out of Alameda County after serving over 12 years in California state prisons. And I'm really happy that so many folks came out today to join us to get this information about 1170D, and hopefully we can get more folks out through this process. Before I kind of go into the agenda, I want to shout out our interpreter, Naida Pacheco, and maybe she can give a short introduction of herself. Naida, you're on.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Naira Pacheco y seré su intérprete esta tarde del inglés al español. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Naira Pacheco, and I will be your interpreter from English to Spanish for today. La función de interpretación ya está activada, así que ustedes se pueden sentir libres de escuchar este evento en inglés o español, en el idioma que se sientan más cómodos. Si están en una computadora, van a poder acceder a la interpretación a medio del globo, el icono de globo que está al fondo y a la derecha de su pantalla. Hacer clic ahí y luego seleccionar el idioma en el que quiere escuchar. Si está conectado por un celular o tableta, podrá hacerlo a medio de los 3 puntitos de menú que están al fondo y a la derecha de la pantalla también. Si por algún motivo el audio original suena más fuerte que la voz del intérprete, en cualquier momento pueden silenciar el audio original. So interpretation is already activated. So if you wish to switch over to the Spanish channel, you are able to do so through the globe icon that is on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen if you are on a computer. Or if you are logged in from a cell phone or a tablet, you can do so through the 3 dots that are on the right-hand side and the bottom of your screen. If at any moment the original audio is louder than the voice of the interpreter, you can mute original audio at any time to mute the English version. Si tiene cualquier problema, puede comunicar por el chat. If you have any issues, you can communicate them through the chat. Y por último, también van a notar que el intérprete estará utilizando el final de la letra E para palabras asignadas con un género binario en vez del uso tradicional de A o O. Este no es un error, sino es una práctica intencional de ser inclusivo para personas de géneros no binarios o no conformes al género binarios. Muchas gracias. And lastly, you may notice on the Spanish rendition that the interpreter will be using an E ending instead of the traditional A or O ending for gendered Spanish terms. This is not a mistake. This is an intentional practice in order to be inclusive of gender non-conforming people. Thank you very much. Y podemos comenzar. We may begin.
Thank you, Naida. That was very informative. Appreciate you. Yeah, I just want to appreciate everyone for coming out today, especially the families and loved ones of folks inside and folks that are formerly incarcerated. Yeah, I'm hoping that this can be a space where folks can get the information that they need to be able to advocate for their loved ones. I just want to give a quick disclaimer about the format of this event. We were hoping to have a more intimate type event, a Zoom meeting where folks could interact with the panelists and speakers and also interact with each other. unfortunately, due to the huge interest in this webinar and in this subject, we've had to switch to this webinar format. And just to let y'all know that we will also be planning follow-up events. And we also encourage y'all to fill out the survey, which will help us help inform future events that we plan. And so if someone can drop that in the chat for everyone, if we could get y'all to fill out that survey. It's a quick survey. Yeah, I think that's it on that. There it is right there. Okay. Okay, so to dive into the program, first of all, I'd like to say something, a little piece about like what brings us here today. And that is our love for folks who find themselves inside of prisons. I know that that's what brings me here today, as a person who's formerly incarcerated and who was in the community inside, and also who has just recently gotten out. I think it's important for me to be involved in this type of work, because I still feel connected to that community. That community played a huge role in my personal growth and just really my journey to getting free. And so I feel a duty to those folks. And so when I speak about the love of those folks, I feel like sometimes that can feel like that's a radical act, right? That it's a radical act to love someone inside when the world says that that person should not be loved, or that the walls that block folks from our sight and from our touch, that somehow like the love doesn't penetrate those walls. And so I think, you know, in reflection about this event, I wanted to kind of like offer up this framing, which is that to love someone in prison and to be on this journey is an act of radical love. And in that way, it's connected and in communication with the legacies of folks like Assata Shakur, Malcolm, and George Jackson. And not only that, it's also linked to this broader struggle of liberation that frees us all. Because when we bring folks home, we are in the process of rebuilding our communities. And that's what this is all about. And so I'd like to offer up this poem that a friend shared with me recently. And I feel like it kind of explains itself. And this is for y'all. It is called The Radical Gratitude Spell. And the subtitle reads, "A spell to cast upon a stranger, comrade, or friend working for social and/or environmental justice and liberation. You are a miracle walking. I greet you with wonder. In a world which seeks to own your joy and your imagination, you have chosen to be free every day as a practice. I can never know the struggles you went through to get here, but I know you have swum upstream, and at times it has been lonely. I want you to know I honor the choices you made in solitude, and I honor the work you have done to belong. I honor your commitment to that which is larger than yourself, and your journey to love this particular container of life that is you. You are enough. Your work is enough. You are needed. Your work is sacred. You are here, and I am grateful." And just to follow that up, I wanted to offer up a check-in question. And the check-in question for today is, who or what inspires you to be here today? And so for folks who want to answer that question, you can answer in the chat. And we'll just kind of check out some of what folks. Victoria says, "My husband," of course. Scarlett says, "My husband." There's a bunch of my husbands, my brother, my son, my husband of 19 years, my son Jyler. Oh man, I love Jyler. That's my heart. That's my buddy. yeah, so many uncles, husbands, friends. Yeah, this is overwhelming. And so, yeah, I mean, this just affirms what I was speaking to is that radical love, and that love that not only connects us to folks inside, but connects all of us, and connects us to this work and this overall struggle for liberation for all. So while folks are answering the check-in question, I just want to name that like within the last year, there have been a lot of folks who have come home, including myself. I know Isaiah, who recently came home on an 1170 petition, and I know that he's here today. But also folks who have come home through different avenues, through commutations, through the parole board. I just want to recognize those folks, and if there are folks out there that are watching this that want to shout themselves out, in the chat, like, please feel free to do that too. I see Rashid Zinneman in the chat, who is also one of my loved ones. So to everyone that is in some way connected to me, man, I send my love to y'all. So just to follow that up too, I also want to name that we've also lost a lot of folks this year for a lot of different reasons. And I also want to remember those folks as we are lifting up the folks who are out now and who are back in community. There are also folks that didn't make it out. And yeah, I mean, I just want to take the time to recognize those folks and also say that that informs the urgency of what we do today and moving forward, that we need to have our people out here and out of the unsafe conditions and situations that are the prison. Okay, so moving forward, I want to get into a rundown of the agenda of what's gonna happen today. So first and foremost, after this introduction, myself and James King will go into an overview of what 1170 D1 is and what is the checklist. After that, we'll get an update from Los Angeles County. I believe one of the DAs from Los Angeles County is here and has some information for us on that. Also, Elliot, who is one of the organizers of this event, will be following that up with details on what's going on in Los Angeles County and how we can support our loved ones. After that, we'll get an introduction to participatory defense hubs, which is something that I recently became informed about. I didn't know that these things were happening, which is essentially like folks in the community that are educating people who are going through the legal process, and they're organizing in communities across the country. After that, at 6 o'clock, we will have a discussion by Colby of folks with LWOP sentences and death sentences, and a clarification that those people are not excluded from 1170. I know that that was one of the questions that a lot of people had. And then that will be followed up with a question and answer section that I will facilitate and also be shooting questions to some of the speakers and also folks who are like knowledgeable on this. And then we'll close out, and that'll be the end of the program. So let's get into the agenda. Okay. Before we get started, I just want to welcome in James King, who is a state campaigner for Ella Baker Center. And I don't know if you want to give a quick intro of yourself, James, my connection to you is that we were both in San Quentin together, not too far from where I am right now, probably not too far from where you are right now. But yeah, I mean, the circumstances have changed a lot, and it's great to see you here. Do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
No, I think you covered it. I use he, his pronouns, and yeah, likewise. As you were beginning this today, I was just thinking back to like, wow, 14 months ago, sitting in an education building, and just feeling appreciation to be in this space, vibing together today.
Absolutely. James is a person that was huge in my personal growth and supported me along this journey and key to me being out right now. Yeah, so let's just hop into this. I want to give a quick overview of what 1170 is. 1170D1 is a penal code that allows the courts to essentially resentence a person who has been sentenced to be in prison in state prison. And so that sentence can be recalled by the courts and brought back as if that person was never sentenced and then resentenced again. Within the last 2 years, for the last 2 years, DAs and CDCR have been recommending folks back to court because two laws that went into effect. The first one is AB 1812, Assembly Bill 1812, which allotted funding to CDCR to recommend folks back to their courts in their sentencing counties and to consider post-conviction factors like rehabilitation programs, et cetera, in those recommendations. The second piece of legislation was AB 2942, Assembly Bill 2942, that amended 1170D1 and authorized district attorneys across the states to make referrals for recall and sentencing. And so mainly what we'll be talking about today is those DA referrals and like the opportunities and obstacles that present themselves as we kind of explore this new kind of terrain. So I'm gonna hand it over to James, who's gonna get a little bit more into the weeds about 1170 and yeah, add some more detail.
Thanks. I guess what I would add to that is CDCR and district attorneys throughout the state who can each independently make referrals for resentencing tend to have different criteria. When we talk about CDCR, the main things that they look at are often quote unquote exceptional behavior, which they largely define as staying disciplinary free, maybe a few self-help programs. If there's been a change in the sentencing law, they will often refer people for resentencing or theoretically should, or if there was a sentencing discrepancy that they note when they're observing the abstract. And then just recently, they've started referring some select people for resentencing based upon risk factors to COVID-19. That the criteria for that is still based upon things that are not strictly medically related. For instance, as of right now, CDCR is only referring people with determinate sentences for the medical COVID relief. Then the other main way that people receive referrals for resentencing are from district attorneys from the county of conviction. Each one of those criteria will vary based upon which county it is. Some DAs like DA Boudin in San Francisco is very committed to the prospect. Others have been slow to roll it out if they're using it at all. And they have tremendous leeway in who they would like to refer for resentencing. There's really no boundaries around them. It's just the boundaries that they impose upon themselves. And to that point that Adamu named earlier, in the law itself, people with life without the possibility of parole sentences and people with death sentences can also be resentenced. One other thing that it's really important to note is whether it's CDCR or whether it's with a district attorney or with the courts themselves, there is no avenue for self-referral. With CDCR, what has to happen is someone with the CDCR email, theoretically, has to email the powers that be in Sacramento, and that's how a person is then reviewed and considered for resentencing. In truth and in practice, every warden and every institution kind of does it a little bit differently. I'm sure people on this webinar are very aware. Every prison kind of like acts as its own fiefdom in a lot of ways. And so there's a lot of variation in how the referrals go from the institution level, the prison level to Sacramento based upon what prison a person is at. And then with the DAs, people have been having success with reaching out to DAs and resentencing or conviction integrity units and doing a little participatory defense, which we'll get in later, in order to advocate that the DA make a referral. Again, that's based upon what county the person is in, the degree of success that's coming out of it. One other thing that I think it's really important to note is occasionally we get emails from people who say, well, I've been paying this attorney to do this. And I would strongly say that no one should be charging you to do this. There's no need for an attorney. Everything that can happen in the process, everything you'll see today, some of the resources we'll share, like anyone can do it. And if there's just like challenges with doing it, there's community support. So just want to just kind of like name that this is not something where there's like where you're going to want to go hire an attorney and pay them a few $1,000s to do this. There's no real intrinsic value to doing that. One of the things that's going to be in the chat, and one of the things that we've talked about is a Resentencing Now checklist for preparing resentencing packets that we've put together for this event and going forward. We're going to revisit it a couple of times throughout this webinar, but I just want to start off with it and just talk about the first couple of pages, which kind of get into a lot of the information that I just shared with you regarding what CDCR looks at and what the district attorneys tend to look for, and what are some of the things that you can include in packets to send to them. One other thing that it's really important to note is that if you're contacting a district attorney, to do so with caution. They are not our natural allies. They're not always on board with helping people get home, and they might have other agendas. So you really want to do it in a way that is protective and safe of our loved ones inside. Again, the checklist will walk you through requesting a review from CDCR, and it will talk about what their eligibility criteria is in more detail than I've gone through, as well as some of the frequently asked questions when seeking a referral for resentencing from a district attorney's office. Adamu?
Thank you, James. That was very comprehensive. And I'm seeing there are a lot of questions in the Q&A section, and I think it's really difficult to try to answer every single question at this point, but we're going to try to have a section at the end where we address some of the questions coming in the Q&A chat. I want to swing it over to Diana Tehran, who is here from the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, and who's going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Los Angeles. I saw in the chat that folks were asking if this was just about Los Angeles. This is not just about Los Angeles, but this section particularly is about Los Angeles. And Los Angeles County has a new head DA, and I see Diana's ready. So I'm going to pass it off to you. Thank you for being here, Diana.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay? First of all, I want to start by saying that DA Gascon is committed to reviewing as many cases as possible of individuals whose sentence is either needs to be changed due to changes in law or due to his newly enacted policies. We think it's going to be many, many individuals that will qualify. However, we currently don't have a process in place. So the reason I'm here and what inspired me to come, even though we don't have a process in place, is because I've heard a lot about attorneys taking advantage of individuals, charging a lot of money, saying, hey, I can get you resentenced. So I want to dispel that. I agree with James, you don't necessarily need an attorney. We're in the process of establishing protocols which will be published on our website. I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks and certainly before the end of February. And the website is da.lacounty.gov. And basically what we're going to do, at least currently what we're thinking about doing, is having a tiered process. And we will publish what those tiers will be. And individuals who have are over a certain age, possibly have served a lot of time in custody, were convicted originally under the 3 strikes law for a non-serious, non-violent offense, or perhaps when they were committed an offense when they were 14 or 15 years old and were tried as adults. So those are some of the categories that we're looking into. And I encourage people to check our website for more direction. And we'll have a kind of an FAQ that should answer most of their questions. At this point, unfortunately, we are not able to accept any packages for consideration. I just ask that you be patient and check our website often. And I'm happy to answer any other questions. I was just brought over to the DA's office. I'm a special advisor to the district attorney, and I'm charged in part with creating a resentencing unit. But it's going to take a little time to get that going. So I just ask that you be patient and check our website frequently for updates.
Thank you, Diana. Appreciate you being here. I think I want to follow that up with Elliot, who I believe has some other updates from stuff that we have been getting through the grapevine and through other sources. So yeah, Elliot, if you want to introduce yourself and any updates that you have, thank you.
Thank you so much, Adamu. Thank you, Diana, so much for being here. I think Diana really captured it in terms of like what we've been hearing from all over, right? And I'm just so grateful, Diana, that you're setting up this unit and willing to join us tonight and to answer questions that folks have been having. I know we've been hearing this all over the state, right? The excitement around potentially thousands and thousands of people getting looked at again for the unjust sentences that they have. And also seeing a lot of concerning websites going up of these quote Gascon packets that attorneys are trying to sell. So really want to dispel that myth along with Diana and James and everyone who's mentioned it so far tonight, that we really are hoping through this event, through follow-up events, and through the resources that we'll be sharing in the chat to really empower our communities, our families to fight together, to engage with the participatory defense hubs in your local area, to support your loved one in this process, to come up with the things that you can put into this packet with the resources available online that are free, with recordings like this and guides that many organizations who are collaborating with us tonight and other organizations have put together. Excuse me, I'm talking really fast. With guides that have been put together to support you in this process. so that you don't have to take out a loan or spend money on an attorney before there's actually something for an attorney to do. So we're going to drop in the chat again this link to the resentencing checklist. This is a checklist that we put together over the last week, boiling down other resentencing guides that are out there into about an 8-pager. We go over the criteria that James was mentioning of what CDCR is looking at currently, which is currently guided by these emergency regulations. But as James mentioned, that doesn't apply to the district attorneys, right? We're seeing like the leadership of DA Gascon in this moment and saying, I'm not gonna just look at the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. I'm gonna start considering all the injustice of all these enhancements of the way folks were charged at certain ages and the current medical vulnerabilities that they have. So this really is a county by county situation right now. So I guess we'll pivot. I thank you, Diana, for being here. I think we can pivot right now to sort of digging in a little bit more into the checklist, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Diana. So we're dropping this link in the chat. And so for folks who have already supported their loved one or currently supporting their loved one with planning for a parole hearing, with filing for a commutation with the governor's office, or reapplying to Newsom if you did it through Brown. Many of the things that we're going to talk about in this checklist are going to sound familiar to you. And I want to emphasize that all of the work that you do to help prepare your loved one to request resentencing, either from CDCR or a district attorney, will also be things that you can use for preparing for a parole hearing or applying for a commutation. These are a universe of documents that are fairly uniform, right? These are the same documents that you'll use in each setting. So even as we face setbacks on certain paths along the way, many attorneys will say to pursue multiple paths to relief and release at once. And so we hope to empower you with this checklist. Thank you, screen share. Yes. Okay, so we're going to particularly, especially when we're talking to a district attorney, want to have an abstract of judgment. This will give the district attorney looking at the case the idea of like what the sentence was, what the charges were, what the enhancements were. So we need some of that information to kind of ground some of these discussions when we're asking for resentencing in terms of what enhancements we're asking to be taken off, and other similar conversations like this. That'll be a really important point to have. And then we've seen, especially during COVID, right, where there's like, we're talking about how dangerous it is inside, and we're talking about what are safer places for people to go. It's really important to talk about our parole plans in terms of the current housing options that we have available to us in our community, whether it's with family or with friends. As well as transitional housing offers you have. This will be about a 2 to 3 page document where you can outline, and we've done this for loved ones, my loved one and others, like we can do it county by county, right? You can give different county options. So if your loved ones say the case was in LA, maybe you say in LA, they can live with this person, they have this housing offer, there's this AA meeting in LA County. And then you can also propose, maybe if it's like you have another family support system in the Bay Area, you can say, in Alameda County, I have this person I can live with, this housing offer, this AA meeting, et cetera, et cetera. And we walk through in the checklist all the different points you can hit in these parole plans. We also have seen that relapse prevention plans are really helpful for these. Just as you would for a parole hearing or a commutation application, putting together, and there's really helpful guides that are linked in this checklist, putting together a plan for knowing what our triggers are, what are our coping skills, and who's the support network that we're going to turn to when we face these challenges. We also mentioned a letter of remorse. There's a lot of great guides out there for these as well. One thing I'll just name, the letter of remorse is solely about the harm that was caused. So while there are multiple other areas where you'll be able to talk about your record of rehabilitation, your insight into the harm caused, accountability, all of the good things that you've done, this is not the place for them. The letter of remorse is solely about showing remorse, you know, recognizing the harm that was caused and that it can never be taken back. There's also below that a letter of insight, right? And a statement of accountability. And that's where folks will talk more about, you know, sort of like understanding, you know, the various ways in which the thing happened, right? That was the event, and sort of like what has been done since then to make living amends. We also note that in these packets, it can be really helpful to have a resume. So talking about your employable skills, the jobs that you held either before or during incarceration, and any housing offers that you may have, you could name them in here, but a resume can be really helpful. And then the range of support letters, and we put this in the general order that we've seen Board of Parole hearings look at these letters in terms of the weight that they hold. This may vary, right, with your district attorney and your county, but we know for CDCR and the Board of Parole hearings, they tend to weight more heavily things like support letters from officers, from wardens at the top, as well as like chronos and support letters from program staff. We also look for job offer letters. We put in here also housing offer letters that will back up the sort of outline that you put in place for the parole plans at the top, right? So you can name LA County, I'll go here, but then see this housing offer letter here in my packet of support letters. So it's like both and. And then we also talk a lot about the people that knew you while you were inside, whether those folks are currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated and out here now, who can speak to your character of while you were incarcerated, right? And your rehabilitation, the things that you were doing while inside, as well as letters from family and friends, people who have seen you throughout your life, who want to support you when you come home. We've also seen it's helpful for letters of spiritual leaders, right? Whether it's a specific congregation that you can join when you're out here who wants to welcome you, or the chaplains, the imams inside who were part of your spiritual journey while you were incarcerated. We also have seen letters from community-based organizations who offer various forms of support being helpful here. And then AA sponsors are also something that may be relevant to your situation. That could be something that you could gather here. I'll just quickly, I know I'm running out of time, so I just want to quickly say there's a lot here. There's a lot of links to templates and samples that we put into this checklist to help you in this. And we know it's overwhelming. It's a lot of things to gather, right? So it's helpful to take them one at a time, to be thinking about like, who are the people in my life who've done something like this before, who may be able to just get on the phone with and talk with me about how they did it for their loved one or what these can look like. But I'm supporting a couple of friends in this right now, and we just take like one a month sometimes. Like this month, we're going to work on a book report. We found this book report list. We're going to order the book off of the website and try to get it inside, right, through one of those approved vendors, and then we're going to talk it out together. So we take in piecemeal, but this can be a checklist. Not all of these documents may be relevant to your loved one, but many of them may be relevant and will be helpful to gather, not just for a resentencing packet, but also for other avenues. Thank you, Adamu.
Thank you, Elliot. So informative. I just want to make a comment about, as folks are talking about attorneys who are advertising that they will put together these packets. I just want to note that like most of the folks that we have here tonight, and this is no shade on attorneys, but most of the folks that you're hearing from tonight are folks from the community, folks who are directly impacted, folks who have been through this process, you know, either from the perspective of a loved one or formerly incarcerated person like myself. And so I just want folks to know that there's support out there for you, and there are people out there that know about this process from that perspective. I know about this process. I know what a heavy load this is to put together these packets, and it seems overwhelming. But we are here to offer up our support and to also like reach out and ask the community to support each other. And so with that, I want to send it over to Cecilia, who works with Silicon Valley Debug and also with the participatory defense hubs. And they are going to talk about that. Is Cecilia here?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Cecilia. Appreciate
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having all of the Participatory Defense Network be part of this as well. So thank you everyone for having us here. My name is Cecilia. I'm one of the organizers in Silicon Valley Debug that supports families going through criminal, immigration, or juvenile cases. So I'll give an overview of what participatory defense is for those who might be the first time hearing these terms. And then we'll talk about how we've started working with families through the 1170D process, specifically through 2942 in Santa Clara County. And then I'll just give an introduction to the rest of the network in California. So for those who haven't heard of participatory defense, this is an organizing model that started from San Jose with families who had loved ones impacted by the criminal system. It started by moms who were just gathering to support one another because of their loved ones going through cases. It's an organizing model, like I said, where we impact the court systems by actively engaging in our loved ones' cases. So the way the participatory defense works is we hold weekly meetings for these families who really just come to us through word of mouth in San Jose, and we uphold three principles in our participatory defense work, which is we work to support the individual and break that isolation of what the court system does to our loved ones, because we all know a lot of the times when our loved ones are going through the case, the court system is meant to just isolate that person and just have that person go by the case themselves. What participatory defense does, it does the opposite, actually. We embrace that individual, we embrace that family, and we support and walk with one another. This is organizing. Our second principle is that this is organizing. This isn't a service model, and I'll talk about exactly what that means. Through participatory defense, families are actively engaged through the meetings. We don't do anything without the support or leadership of the family. And lastly, we work from the individual case to make systemic changes within the criminal, immigration, or juvenile system. We've shared this organizing methodology across the country about 6 years back, and there's currently about 45 different organizations that practice participatory defense. 13 of those are in California, so we have an extensive network in California, all the way from Richmond to San Diego. So my role as an organizer and coordinator of the network is to connect, families that come to us to all the other hubs that we work with through this specific organizing lens. And I know, I'm sorry I speak too fast. I'm just trying to squeeze all of this into a short period of time. But specifically for 1170D cases. We've partnered about 2 years ago. Yeah, around about 2 years ago, with partner up with Hillary Blount from For the People, to when the 2942 language was actually being drafted and it wasn't a law yet. So we've partnered up with her and her office and her organization to really focus in Santa Clara County, since RDA was one of the co-sponsors of the bill. And like I said, this is organizing. So the way that we started supporting families is that we had a list of how many people were being referred through CDCR and could also be considered through 2942. And through this process, there've been about 8 families that have been released from CDCR because of the work and advocacy that we've done. So everything that Elliot mentioned earlier around the checklist, that's exactly what we do. We call it actually a social biopacking. And it, like she said, it is a lot of work. It is, but this is all work that is possible. You all got this. It wasn't myself who've been working with these with a lot of the families, but I've been part of the support team. I want to give a shout out to Benet, Yoli, Raj, who have been the leads in this work. So essentially what it looks like is families are participating in our weekly meetings, and we're talking with the families every single week in small steps, in increments. So that list doesn't have to be so daunting. We take it one step at a time. Okay, we're going to work on the remorse. We're going to work on, gathering resources from the community. So the first step is just doing some research. The second step, it might be editing letters of support. So it's a process. So don't feel that you have to, get all of these documents right off the bat. It is, a very lengthy process, and it is a lot of, involvement from you as the family. And just want to say that we are here to support you all. Like I said, there's about 13 hubs in California where we could connect you all with. I believe there's going to be a link passed on of where these hubs exist, but definitely always feel free to reach out to us too to help support you and branch you to those hubs.
Thank you, Cecilia. Appreciate you. Yeah, so to follow up with that, Cecilia gave a kind of a overall view of what participatory defense is. I want to throw it over to Jay and Cardi to talk specifically about Alameda County and San Francisco County hubs.
Sure. Thank you, Adamu, for welcoming us. Yeah, I think Ceci, said it best. The other ones, Silicon Valley Debug, are the ones that started the participatory defense model. So we got it going out here in Alameda County. The reason it's so important is that for generations, families have been fed the false narrative that they can't do anything when their loved ones are fighting cases or when their loved ones are already incarcerated. And that has to be dispelled because it's not true. And we know it's not true. We've seen how families and communities can influence the outcome of a court case or can really advocate to free their loved ones once they're already incarcerated, like through 1170D. So we often find that families feel isolated, they feel confused, they often feel frustrated, with the criminal and justice system. And so what we do is, we offer support, guidance, and ultimately act as thought partners. And just want to echo what Ceci said, that ultimately it's family centered and family led. We don't want to, give fish to people. We want to teach people how to fish and be advocates, strong advocates for their loved ones in this movement, and also to carry it on, to others. And some of our best meetings, our best participatory defense meetings, in my opinion, are when the families are really engaged and assist other families that are also going through that process. And and I speak from personal experience. At 16 years old, I was processed through the adult courts, and my family just felt like they couldn't do anything. Like all they could do is sit on the sidelines, and that's not true. But back then, that was the narrative and what they felt and they believed. So that's what they did, and they just watched me get 31 years to life. Ultimately, I ended up doing 25 years, and had to advocate for myself to get out of prison through the parole board. And so I bring that personal experience to our Alameda County Participatory Defense Hub, and I work with some really amazing community organizers, and we all bring something different to the table. And so that's our hub. We bring all these different unique experiences, either directly or indirectly, and just have a passion for helping people bring their loved ones home. And so some of the things we do is what you guys discussed earlier with the packet you guys talked about. We do call it a social biography packet, but we work with the families and work hand in hand and help guide them through that process, because it is very it can be intimidating. It can be very, very intimidating for their loved one to put that together or not know what to do. And so we really just guide the families along and really empower the families to be able to do that work. And we've seen great things happen. Also in Alameda County, I'm blessed to be part of a DA accountability coalition where we, about once a month, we meet with District Attorney Nancy O'Malley. And one of the things that we do through that is push for 1170D resentencing. So we kind of combine our work that we're doing with our Participatory Defense Hub, which is a different entity, and combine that with our DA Accountability Coalition and presenting these 1170D cases to DA O'Malley. And it's so important that people start working on those resentencing packets or social bile packets. It's different, semantics, but it's pretty much the same thing early on, because what we're hearing from DA O'Malley is that when they want to see the person's central file in prison, see how they're doing, and ultimately to see if they're going to resentence them, there's an attorney, and there's a lag. There's a lag in time. So what we seem very powerful is when we present the social bile packets to DA O'Malley, and her team has a chance to look at those, and they see all the positive things and the community support and the parole plans and everything that's lined up for the incarcerated individual, they're more likely to be on the ball and to really move forward with 1170D resentencing. So it goes hand in hand to what we're doing. We do meet every Thursday evening via Zoom now because of the pandemic, but we're here for folks and to help guide them through this process. And so some of the things we do is we submit names to DA O'Malley to where she can review those people that are incarcerated from Alameda County, of course, to ultimately be resentenced. So, there's some challenges, of course, because ultimately we're going through the same system that put our folks away in the first place, right? Overcharged them, and over sentenced them. And so working within that same system to try to bring some justice to our folks and bring our loved ones home. And I'll pass it on to Cardi.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Cardi. I work for and with the Young Women's Freedom Center. And I work out of Alameda and San Francisco County. And also, like, on a personal note, me being formerly incarcerated, I was a juvenile LWOP, life without the possibility of parole, at the age of 17. And been out almost, close to going on 2 years. But my thing is, if I had the participatory defense in my case and things that's going on right now, what how the family is, and like bringing unity into the family and having people come to the hubs and working and fighting for each other. If I had that in my trial, I believe my outcome would have been really different. So one of the reasons why I fight and do a part of this participatory defense is because I know that this is what's needed. This is what the family needs. And I'm a little bit emotional now because I just want to reach out for the families. Like, if you need a place to go, if you need somewhere to go, if you need somewhere to fight for your family, and you need to, you feel as if you don't have anyone, you feel as if no one's there for you, or you don't know how to reach out, participatory defense is what it is. It's what is needed. They come together, they help strategize. They're not attorneys or anything like that. We don't do any of that, but we use our hearts, we use our minds, and we strategize to see how can we help one another, how can we come together and figure out how can we move along whatever the issue is for each family. And this has been a blessing for me, from being incarcerated for over like 23, 24 years to now getting out and be able to reach back and say, hey, family, I'm here for you. We're here for you. Let's strategize whatever's going on within your loved one's situations. I know more about that because of my own incarceration, especially for females, because females has been, people who are incarcerated as females has been looked over time and time again. We need more people to reach out for the females that's incarcerated and open up those doors, because there's so many loved ones, there's so many people who are also free females that has been locked up, and people are overlooking them because either they don't have people who's out there to fight for them, or they don't have people who's out there to just even see who they are. So to open up these doors and say, hey, you have people out here to fight for you. That's why I'm here. And so, like Jay said, like, we're there. We're here to help. We're here to help fight for people. We're here for the loved ones. And the San Francisco, we every Monday from every Monday from 4 to like 6:30, we strategize. We do a hub there, and we try to fight for loved ones who have families incarcerated, and we try to strategize. So if you can, yeah, just reach out.
Thank you, Cardi, and thank you, Jay. I really appreciate y'all. Everything that you share is so powerful, and it comes from personal experience and tears and pain. But that's what makes it so valuable to folks that are still in those situations. We've seen the insides of this thing, and we know how to navigate it, and we come at it with care because we've been in that position before, and that's what's different. And so I want to make a quick announcement for folks that are watching this through YouTube Live. If you fill out the survey that we have, and if somebody can drop it in the chat, you will get the links via email that are available to folks in the chat that are on the Zoom call. So another incentive for you to fill out the survey is you will get all of the links to all of the resources available emailed to you if you fill out the survey. Okay, so the next presenter is Colby Lentz, who is with California Coalition for Women Prisoners and Survived and Punished. And they're gonna talk about LWOPs and folks who have death sentences.
Thanks so much, Adamu, and thank you so much for hosting us tonight. Also, thank you, Cardi. Great to hear your voice. So happy to be here with everybody, and I'm imagining everybody's faces, seeing all of your powerful commentary in the chat. I know we're all here together to bring people home. I just want to give a quick update. As Adamu said, I'm going to talk slower. We are here as a wide coalition of people and groups, including a team of death penalty attorneys who've done a lot of research, and we want to clarify that people sentenced to life without parole and people sentenced to the death penalty are included in Penal Code 1170 D1, which is, as you all know, the part of the Penal Code that we're talking about tonight that determines resentencing. So currently this is happening in a limited way through district attorney referrals. And it unfortunately is not happening through CDCR at this point. They changed their temporary policies to exclude people sentenced to life without parole and the death penalty, as probably most people here know. But they are at some point going to open up their public comment process for those regulations, and you'll hear more about that. But this is one of the reasons why it will be so important for us to gather together and do mass public comment to make sure that they discontinue excluding people sentenced to life without parole and the death penalty for the CDCR initiated referrals. But at this point, we are seeing some with DAs. In fact, just recently, a woman that we've been working with at the California Coalition for Women Prisoners was resentenced from life without parole to a parole eligible sentence through a DA referral. And that was coupled with, as many people have discussed today, amazing combination of family support and community-based organizational support to put together that kind of packet and share information about both who she is and how ready the community is to bring her home. And so we are still in a kind of second part of that process, but later in February, if people want to learn more about that process, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at CCWP. Our general email address is info@womenprisoners.org, and we'll put it in the chat. But one more time, that's info@womenprisoners.org. And we're very happy to share more information about that. And then the other piece is that through these resources that you're getting tonight, there'll be a link to a new memo that was put together by a team of death penalty attorneys that kind of breaks down the legal argument about why people sentenced to life without parole and the death penalty are eligible for 1170D resentencing. So we'll drop that link in the chat again, and it's also going to come with your set of resources. And lastly, I just wanted to say there's many people on this call I know who are fighting so hard to end life without parole sentencing, what we also call death by incarceration. And there's many ways to plug in to the campaigns to end life without parole sentencing in California. We are part of the Drop LWOP coalition with many organizations, including Families United to End Life Without Parole. And we welcome anybody who wants to plug in. If you're not already plugged in, our monthly meetings are every third Monday at 7 p.m. And we've been doing them by Zoom or phone. And if you want more information about that, the email address you can email is droplwopcampaign@gmail.com. And we'll put that in the chat also. But it's droplwopcampaign@gmail.com. And we look forward to continuing to work with everybody to get more of our loved ones free and home, and to make sure that people sentenced to life without and the death penalty are included in this movement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colby. Such important work, and especially for folks who are facing, those type of circumstances. I think right now we're going to jump into the Q&A section. And so I have a list of questions here that folks have been pulling from the chat. And I will just throw them to some of the presenters to see if they can answer. So the first question is there any legislation this session around 1170D or mandatory hearings? And that is from Kat. I'm gonna send that over to Emily, if Emily is on.
Oh, right. Okay. Hi, all. I'm Emily with the Ella Baker Center. There's a lot of interest legislatively right now in 1170D. There's going to be a few attempts to improve the court process in terms of having periods, like of time that we know that people will get information. The Ella Baker Center is tracking a lot of the new legislation. Much of it hasn't been introduced yet, and some of it will run through the budget process. And so that will be at the end of February that we will have all the information, and we would be happy to share it out. So you can find it on our website.
Thank you, Emily, for that knowledge. The next question is, where do we send all of this information? And I'm assuming that you're talking about the packets. And then the second follow-up question is to the DA. And so let me see, is Elliot still on? Maybe Elliot could tackle that question. Or Jay.
Can you see me or hear me? Jay, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I could speak for Alameda County the way we do it over here. And that's true. Yes, we do get it together with the families. The families do all the work, of course, we empower them to do that and ultimately get it to the DA's office. And Alameda County District Attorney O'Malley actually has a person a district attorney designated just for 1170D reviews. So yes, we do send that to the DA's office.
Thank you, Jay. And I think that's you can either use these packets, right, to try to request this review from a DA, since there's not currently a self-referral process. So that's something that's being looked at in this upcoming legislative cycle, is creating a self-referral process for this law so people can submit directly to the court instead of having CDCR or a district attorney have to do it on their behalf. So for the district attorney, it's helpful to look in your county. You can Google, you can look in our toolkit to see if we've named it. You can write a quick, brief email to the DA office and just ask, is there a resentencing unit in this county? Can you send me an intake form? You don't have to get into any of the details especially if you're concerned about like revealing anything, right? But a simple request of like, do you have an intake form? Or Google and see if that county has it posted on their website. You can go through that process. Some folks from inside have been writing letters to the DA offices and will get intake forms back from certain counties. But because this law is still pretty new, the DAs have only had this power since January of 2019. So as we are seeing with Gascon and with other counties, many are still coming on board. Alameda County, it was only a few months ago that they started doing this, right? So many are still coming on board. There's not really a process set up. So if there's not a process in your county, you can be a part of, approaching your DA, whether you do it in community or with your loved one and maybe some community leaders, to try to get that process going, to try to get their attention on why this is an important route for getting people out and the benefits of this law and their part in as representing the people of decarcerating their county. For CDCR, it's going to look a little different, right? So it's going to be more in terms of using this packet to do some advocacy with people in CDCR who can send a referral for you to the unit in Sacramento. So some people will take a packet like this and talk to people, whether it's program staff or there may be the person, the CO that is in charge of their work assignment, or the chaplain, or someone of this nature, right? Someone that they have some kind of rapport or relationship with, and be like, here's this packet. Would you consider making a referral for me?
Yeah, thank you, Elliot. I think also, and I don't know if Cecilia wants to jump in on this, but I know that specifically Santa Clara County, and I believe one other county, I want to say it's San Joaquin County, has an intake form. And is Cecilia still on?
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
I believe the website for the people through Hillary Blount, they have an intake form because one of the first things is to start getting the C file to see what's inside what's inside that file. So there's some waiver forms that need to be filed as well. But I believe the website for the people has an intake form. Really, the way that many of the families get in contact with us is really just word of mouth and the invitation to one of the family meetings that we host. That's really how we get in contact with folks.
All right, thank you, Cecilia. Next question is, CDCR says that it does not take outside requests for 1170D resentencing referrals, but is handling them based on an internal process. Has anyone had any success with submitting an 1170D petition to CDCR, which resulted in their submitting a referral to the court? Great question. I am gonna see if James would be willing to tackle that question.
nobody comes to mind for me that's had specific success at that. But just like theoretically, if a person knows a person who works for that particular prison and that person is willing to submit that person's name, then they can have success. Like I do know, for instance, people who have been incarcerated, requested, for instance, a chaplain refer that person for resentencing, and then the chaplain go ahead and do so. I've seen that happen. And that, I don't know that that could have come from outside, but in coordination with people inside, like theoretically it can happen, but I don't know of any specific instances that I could point to where it has.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
Elliot's picture pop on made me wonder if they had information that I or more specifics.
Go ahead, Elliot.
I think that's right. Like, so all the advice here is particularly helpful for DAs, and we've seen really mixed results with the kind of responses people get back when they start to make these inquiries with various CDCR agencies. So the people in Sacramento will tell you, like, yes, like, let us know if you think your loved one qualifies for specific types of sentence enhancement resentencing. But that person will then go to their counselor, and the counselor's like, you can't make a self-referral. We don't take outside requests when your family contacts us. But in some cases, like, that does like raise a flag where that person is like, okay, well, this person is eligible. Everything goes back to Sacramento for CDCR referrals, right? So when someone at any facility sends an email using the email we link in the toolkit to CDCR from a CDCR email saying, I'm referring this person, please look into them. Sacramento then does a case workup, and they'll want to attach things like the documents you've prepared in this checklist. So at that point, it's really helpful for the person who referred you to be able to reply back to CDCR, like, yes, I do have support letters, or yes, they did give me parole plans, or et cetera, et cetera. So there's no 1170D petition, but preparing all these documents will be helpful for if you're able to do that self-advocacy with someone in CDCR, or CDCR is already looking at everyone with certain types of enhancements already. If you have a 5-year enhancement, a gun enhancement, a great bodily injury enhancement, they're already doing that internal review. So when you have these documents ready, if you referred back to court, the judge is going to want to see them. So it'll be helpful in that way instead of thinking of it like a petition. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Elliot. Yeah, I think the point also is just that, like, to advocate for yourself is always a good thing. And so to have the, like Elliot said, to have these documents prepared, and if possible, to get letters of support and things like that into your C file, and then also to write letters to folks up in Sacramento can only benefit you. Okay, so next question is, and this is a question specific to LA County. We were waiting for a response to 1172 and 1170D1 petition for 6 months. And since the new DA took office, we are informed to wait until the new procedures are in place in LA County. Do we have to file a new 1170 petition, since the first one was filed in June 2020 when the previous DA was in office? And if Diana is still on.
I'm on.
Yes.
The answer to that question is that no, if they've submitted something, they don't need to resubmit. However, it's unclear, like I said, there's a new administration. It's unclear where that packet may have gone and what the status of that is. The protocol we're thinking about putting in place is that, as I mentioned earlier, we prioritize certain individuals, and then we, working with probably a nonprofit organization, will then contact all of the individuals that are in the first tier, kind of like the vaccines, right? It's like if you're above 65 or you know, whatever the criteria is, we will, together with that nonprofit, contact the individuals, and if they had an attorney previously, also notify that attorney. And then at that point is when we will begin considering a lot of different factors in that review. The review and the eligibility doesn't guarantee that the DA's office will file an 1170D request for resentencing, but we are going to prioritize which cases we review for consideration. Does that make sense? So what I would do for anybody who is compiling a packet is hold on to it for now. Do not send it in until we have a good system in place, because we don't want it to get lost. And we want to make sure that everyone knows who we're prioritizing. And as soon as we get their tier on our website, then at that point, there'll be instructions as to what to do and what is going on.
Thank you, Diana. I think we have one more question that's coming in specific to LA County. So I'll read it. It's, is LA County planning to have a specific judge or court reviewing these resentencing cases?
Right, I saw that in the chat and I tried to respond. And that is something that we will certainly be looking into. However, due to the volume in LA County, it's highly unlikely that it'll just be one judge. I think what's probably going to happen is that those requests will be filed by the DA in the court where the case originated.
All right, thank you, Diana.
Sure.
I think we have time for one more question. And okay. So the next question is, does the recommendation have to be from a DA in the county you were convicted in? And maybe I can throw that to Jay. Would you be willing to take that question?
Yeah, from my understanding, all the folks that we're working with, they have to be sentenced out of Alameda County for this to work. I haven't heard of other county district attorneys reviewing people that were not sentenced out of their county. I haven't heard of that for the 1170D process. So yeah, all the ones that we're doing Alameda County are actually out of Alameda County.
Did anyone else want to chime in on that or have any different information regarding that? Okay. So we are going to wrap up the Q&A section at this point. I really apologize if we didn't answer everyone's questions. That seems like an impossible task because this is such a complex process. But there are links in the chat and also resources that will be following this meeting. So yeah, there will be other avenues for y'all to get questions answered and to get this process started. Before we move into the next section, I want to bring on Norma, who is kind of like coordinating this whole thing behind the scenes. And I think she wanted to say a couple words about specifically the Zoom, keeping the Zoom open.
Yeah, so I know there was a lot of questions that were coming in via the Q&A feature and via the chat. So some of the questions are being answered live time in the Q&A feature. And so once Adamu is done here and closes everything up, I will do a screen share with some links, but I'll keep the Zoom open for 10 to 15 minutes for folks that are here. So you can read through those questions, you can read through those answers, you can pick up the links that were set in the chat. And as I've stated specifically for folks on YouTube, because you won't get those 15 minutes, the survey link is in the comment section of the YouTube as well as other links. And so please fill out that survey and we will try to answer and include other information and follow-up stuff via the survey. So you can stick around after we close this. I'll keep it open and you can check out the Q&A for yourself to see what questions have been answered there.
Thanks, Norma. I'm glad you got on camera. Norma is the puppet master working behind the scenes, making this all come together. A real genius. I think the last section of today's agenda is Emily, who's going to close it out and kind of share with everyone about what the next steps are and how to get connected. So yeah, Emily.
Thanks, Adamu. All right, so I know that we have had over 400 people on combined in the Zoom and in the YouTube, but we've only had about 140 people, 142, fill out the survey form. The best way for us to be able to follow up with y'all is if you fill out the form. And part of that is also going to help us streamline how we can special information for you. So for example, if you have a loved one with a 5-year enhancement, then we can get particular resources to you. And then it'll also help us, the crew of amazing organizations who are here tonight helping put this together. We want to be able to do some more specific follow-up on some of the individual issues, but we need to know what y'all want. So the survey helps us know how to support you all the best. And just we appreciate your all's patience. As you can see by just the amazing turnout tonight, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people who are hitting us up for information, and we're doing our best to try to get everybody as much as we can in as timely of a fashion as possible. So folks are going to drop the survey into the chat for y'all. So please fill that out, and we will be following up. You'll get all of the documents that were linked. We are recording this, so you'll be able to share it with other folks. So we'll send that link. We will also be able to share any updated resources. As you know, all of these laws are changing and shifting, and as you heard, it's developing in all the counties. So we will keep that, keep all of that, you know, up to date for you all. So the other thing that I want to direct people to is our kind of action guide. And this is a summary of a lot of these next steps. So you'll actually can have them before we even email them to you. And so this includes a lot of the materials in English and Spanish, and it ranges from things, a lot of it that came in through the chat. And I know folks on the YouTube are wanting things like the various resentencing guides, some guides around commutation. I know questions around commutation, some of the specific information around writing a support letter, how to get involved in the participatory defense hubs and all of the places where those exist. There's also more information in that action kit around people who are serving LWOP or death sentences and their eligibility. And then one of the main ways that we really recommend folks plug in is get involved in the hubs, and then also get involved with the organizations that are part of this. A lot of these spaces have places for folks to organize, and organizing and building power is what's made these laws possible in the first place. And we can make them better by having more of y'all plugged in, building the power that we need. And so in the action guide, you'll also see some information around some petitions for taking action. So we're trying to demand that Governor Newsom commute all people who are serving LWOP sentences. There's a, you can sign that letter from the Drop LWOP Coalition. There's also public comment around some of the exclusions that are proposed in CDCR's version. There's contact information for the various public defenders' offices, DAs, and some of the information in terms of how to get in touch with some of the decision makers. So highly recommend getting into the action guide, plugging in with the organizations who are involved, and please read the materials. I think most of the questions that were asked today, you can find the answers in the stuff that we've sent you, and we've tried to get you as closely directed as possible. So want to again thank you all, and I'm going to take the liberty to thank and maybe slightly embarrass our MC. So Adamu, thank you. You were amazing. So just so appreciate you know, being part of the fight for your freedom has been one of the best parts of the last few years of my life, and so I'm so grateful to have been part of fighting for your freedom. And I want to celebrate, tomorrow is Adamu's birthday. So I just want everybody to send some love in the chat, in the YouTube. We love you and we want to celebrate you. And thank you so much for helping lead tonight's presentation. Passing it back to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for embarrassing me. I hope I've done an adequate job holding this space for everyone and that things felt like they moved smoothly. I also want to thank folks. And first and foremost, I want to thank Elliot, who without this, like none of this would have happened. Elliot always throws down. And I feel like Elliot doesn't get enough credit for what they do. Someone that I love so much and someone that throws down for everyone. So yeah, Elliot, love you, appreciate you. Norma, you know, this wouldn't have been possible without Norma, working behind the scenes, who is a Zoom genius. James, Issa, Sue, Emily, Nida for doing the interpretation, our tech team, Kari, Crispy, Jane, Yolanda, Courtney, and then to Elizabeth for doing so many edits of all the documents, EJ and the crew at Urban Peace Movement, Yoli and Cecilia and all the folks at Silicon Valley Debug, Colby from CCWP and Survived and Punished, to the Ella Baker Center, the Stop the San Quentin Outbreak Coalition, Uncommon Law, Young Women's Freedom Center, Courage, and all who contributed to organizing this event, Jay, Diana Tehran, Cardi, all of y'all. I really appreciate y'all. I'm about to go celebrate my birthday. It's been a blessing to be here. Let's get folks out. Love y'all.